But I want to, because this is the thing I say to lefties. Let's define socialism. I know that word gets thrown out a lot. And in America, I was told as a kid growing up, you were told that socialism is Stalin era Soviet Union communism. No, it just means workers own the means of production, right? That's all it means. Democratic socialism is that, public money, tax dollars get spent equally. So we already have socialism in America under that definition of the fire department, the police department, and all that stuff. I'm not talking about the socialism where the government tells you what job you have to have. I'm just saying workers own the means of production, right?
Okay.
But
here we go.
So that's the totalitarian Soviet Union communism. That's not the democratic socialism that I'm talking about.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about workers own the means of production.
Okay.
Right? A worker-owned co-op, which still can exist in a free market capitalist society, right? You own a shoe store, I own a shoe store, we're on opposite street corners, and my employees own, it's like owning part of the company. You own stock in the company, right? We still need to make a profit, we still need to work hard, and we need to sell more products and this and that. So isn't then by that just simplistic?
By that definition, you're talking about capitalism.
Right.
You're not talking about democratic socialism. You're saying that the stakeholders, which you also refer to as potentially stockholders, would have a stake in the outcome of the efforts of everyone involved in an enterprise. That's called capitalism.
But it's also, but workers owning the means of production is the simplistic form of socialism, right?
Well, the workers owning the means of production, you end up with some issues along the lines of how to evenly divide that ownership amongst the workers. And what happens is that decision tends to get centralized by an organization in the center in some form that is weighing in on what is quote unquote fair. And if the production is owned in this way by too few who are making these decisions, you end up with something like an oligopoly, or you end up with a system where the meritocratic possibilities of free enterprise get squeezed out. So, I mean,
it can be.
You say that. I'll give you a flip side, which is interesting. Another argument, which is interesting about socialism and capitalism, and that would be with open source software. Like, what is the open source software like Linux? Is that socialist or is that capitalist? Because all the participants who are adding code to Linux, for example, an open source project, are not getting paid. They're contributing to the overall means of production in a sense, right? And so, and it's highly centralized. Linus Torvald is at the center, and he approves the releases of that thing. So that looks on the surface like it's socialism under a classic Marxist definition. Some might argue. There's a lot of slippery sliding between these two camps.
There's a lot of definitions, and any of these things can be corrupted.
Totally.
I mean, capitalism, free market capitalism sounds great, but look, we've seen how corrupted it is, right?
Absolutely. For like one of the reasons just mentioned, right? The ability to buy influence in politics to change the law to make it easier for you to concentrate more wealth. So wealth concentration tends to lead toward monopolistic behavior, and you end up with a bifurcated society of have and have yachts. Have nots and have yachts, right? And which is happening now. Capitalism is not. It's not working as such because of again, the definitions are broad.
Sure.
And you do some digging and you find in both sides, the funnel, it leads to the money in a lot of ways, right? And it leads to the money. For example, in let's say a socialist paradise where you had nothing but pot spinning vegetarians living in a commune somewhere. Okay, let me finish. Okay, and they made $47 every year was their income. Well, guess what? if it was Bitcoin and it's unconfiscatable and it never loses purchasing power, that might be enough. There's no pressure. You don't have to be part of the rat race.
This is my point.
That is a good point.
This is my point with my definition of socialism.
Right.
And I understand everything can be corruptible. I'm of the some people hear socialism as like no one can make a profit. I'm not saying you can't make a profit. I'm just saying it should be more equitable. Right now, when a handful of the average CEO salary in America is $17 million a year.
Right.
People, as we talked about, they have jobs and they can't pay their bills. So in this, to me, anyone can own Bitcoin, which is socialist. Anyone can, again, you can have a half of a Bitcoin, own it your whole life, and it will appreciate in value. And this commune model you're talking about, I think part of the problem of capitalism is it feeds it's not enough, I got more.
Exactly, because the purchasing power is always going down. So you end up in this rat race, this hamster wheel. Yeah. What if the hamster wheel was shut down? And if you just wanted to do a few paintings every month and you sold them for a few $100 and you're happy with that. Well, your purchasing power of the money that you're being paid in Bitcoin never goes down. It always goes up. Right. So you're like, and you're totally satisfied with that. Society should have a multitude of roles being played by a multitude of individuals. Some, for example, people who became teachers because they were willing to take a smaller wage or what have you, because they wanted to give. They enjoy teaching. People who became doctors wanted to be doctors. I mean, they make a lot of money, but still. But what's happened over the past 40-year bull market in bonds is that every single profession has been financialized and turned into something hedge funds buy and sell. So the teachers are really defined by the teachers' union pension account. Is how we see teachers. We see doctors as administrators and growing and metastasizing into more administrators to pay this albatross of multi-leveled kind of financialized Ponzi schemes, right? So, and even in the church, you find that the theologians are been co-opted in many ways by financialization because they sit on valuable property in the middle of cities that are growing, and how to monetize that to help my flock. So it's like, hi, Jesus is great, but can I get a 4.5% loan on the back lot of my church so that I can finance a bake sale I can buy more Bibles? It's like, you shouldn't have to have those conversations.
That's such a great point. This is such a great conversation. This is I love this. Is for me, getting back to why Bitcoin is lefty. Right? Yeah. Is you talked about like unions are a pretty lefty thing, right? And union pensions, there was the Houston Fire Department union 3 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah. Bought some Bitcoin. Yeah. And this is why I think the auto workers union, I wish I'm in SAG-AFTRA. I wish we would buy some Bitcoin for our pension fund, because then we wouldn't get crushed by everything else. And I think it's also a tool for activism. It is a tool, again, and this is lefties' aversion to money and learning about money. If we had a bunch of money, we could actually get more of these things done. I believe like everybody's basic needs should be taken care of. Healthcare, no one should get bankruptcy. Is the number one cause of bankruptcy in America is medical debt. I think that's criminal. I think people dying because they're denied health coverage.
Well, there's a social contract. Yeah. And there's a lot of ways to write a social contract, which could include education and healthcare. But there's pluses and minuses. But, with unions, as a right of center person, I have this to say about unions. If you have a central bank that's controlling the price of money that in a way that benefits the top financiers in the economy, then to counterbalance those forces, you need unions, because unions are the workers' central bank, essentially. Right. So there needs to be quid pro quo. There needs to be some balance. If you want to get rid of unions completely, Mr. Right-winger, then you must also get rid of the central bank. Okay, so either it's one or the other. You can't have a central bank for you guys and no unions for those guys. That doesn't, you can't, that doesn't work. You have to have one or the other. Each has to be represented in one way or another. So preferably it would be no central bank, and no unions. But we have
Bitcoin
a central
could
bank.
create.
Right. So we have central banks, so you need unions. And then with unions, I mean, unions are always arguing that they want their pay to be similar, equal to, or slightly ahead of inflation. That's stupid, because inflation rate means nothing. It's totally fabricated. It's government numbers. They understate inflation because of the cost of living adjustments that need to be made, and there's no incentive to reflect the actual inflation rate. Unions should always argue that they want their pay to mimic the money supply of M2. So M2 is growing at 15-16% a year. That's what my pay should be. My wage should be about 15%, because that's what the money supply is increasing. Otherwise, I'm going to get killed. And if that were the case, minimum wage, if you use this formula, would already be like $60 an hour right now in the United States, which, if you think about it, might not be a bad idea. In Northern Europe, people who work at McDonald's, they have a middle-class life. Yeah. They have a family and a middle-class life with one person working at McDonald's, because they make like, I don't know the exact number, but it's something exorbitantly higher than what you see in the U.S. Yeah. And so those economies are considered to be quote unquote socialist economies. In let's say Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, those types of economies, Iceland, I believe, they'll say, well, it's like more socialist in nature, or France even. And that's an interesting case study. They're not really socialism as we would make that case in terms of Marxism, but the government. To get back to one of the original points, people, when they pay taxes, they feel like they're getting something.
Yeah.
Right? The social contract is, our taxes are high, but we know what we're getting. And, we're okay with that, because this is why we pay taxes. Only in America do people pay such taxes and get absolutely nothing in return. They get negative in return. We get abused. It's like a battered wife situation.
It's awful.
Right? You pay the tax, and you get the shit kicked out of you by your government, and you get nothing, and you get beaten up. That's the system. It's worse. It's the worst of all possible systems, isn't it? I mean, it's not like Northern Europe where you get stuff. It's not like a pure free market capitalist system where you have, I don't know what would be a great example of that, but in the U.S. It's the worst of all systems.
The worst of all
systems.
And
getting worse and just going bankrupt.
Yes. Like we always say, well, the government's bad, okay, and we got to privatize stuff. And then every time something gets privatized, it goes into a for-profit model. And then, we have for-profit healthcare, as we've talked about. We've got for-profit prisons where we're locking people up because they smoked a plant, and it's like for-profit schools, and it just goes on and on, where it's like then the social contract that you brought up, gone.
Yeah.
And the contract is just for the stockholders or whomever, and the board of directors or whatever. And so the average person is completely worked over.
That's where I think in El Salvador under President Bukele, you're seeing somebody who's reinventing this whole nation state model with Bitcoin as the base layer. So they are, the government is people get a sense that their tax dollars are working for them, and they can see it working for them. They can see the roads. The classic, where are the roads? How come the roads aren't being built? Well, here they actually are being built. The schools, the health system, and all these things are being actually, you can see what's going out with the taxes, plus these great public spaces. So you're seeing, I think, the best possible situation. So, I mean, I'm not one of these guys like an anarcho-capitalist who thinks all government sucks. No, I think, the idea of a social contract and a governing body to some degree. I mean, governing bodies govern our reality. There's, physics is a bunch of governance formulas that dictate our physical world. Chemistry is the periodic table is very rigid. It's a governing body of chemicals. You can't just decide that, I think I'll put gold over here where helium is, and I'll put helium over here where titanium is, and see what happens, right? The Bitcoin protocol.
It's my right to do that. Yeah. I want to shape it around.
The gold is identifying as helium. It's transitioning to helium. So, we have to let that happen. So now everyone is inflating their circus balloons with pure gold. and we're wondering why everything is like idiocracy.
My helium identifies as gold.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
We just have to.
And the Bitcoin is an extremely rigid protocol. You can't. It's inviolate, right? It's the protocol is exactly what nobody can fuck around with it. That's what makes it Bitcoin. There's only 21 million coins that'll ever exist. So governance models, we're all governed in some way. Our physical bodies, the heart is pumping, the lungs are breathing, photosynthesis is taking place on plants. Things are happening. It's governed by governance things governing. So a society, when you put more than 3 or 4 people together, they're going to want to have like some chat about how we all going to work this out, in the cave, like, okay, that's all shit over there. Okay, that you just invented government.
That's government,
right?
That's government.
Okay, so but there's ways that with a Bitcoin standard, you end up not wasting money and therefore not wasting time, because time, kind of is money in a lot of ways. So, and if you're saving people time and you're saving them money, they're happy, by having a communal social relationship where you're abiding by these laws and rules that we've agreed on, that every 4 to 10 years we can vote on again. There's nothing wrong with that. Except in the fiat money world, it gets co-opted completely, and then the crooks come in, and then it becomes a negative cycle.
This is the thing, and we'll start wrapping up here. I think.
Fuck, we're not wrapping it up. I'm going to sort this out.
Well, let's keep going. I'll keep going.
Issue until it takes. No, I'm not. So wrap it up. I'm losing consciousness.
I know you got a tea time, or you got to go to the polo club.
Hello.
This is the thing that is so great about not just El Salvador, but the Bitcoin space and being around Bitcoiners is having these conversations, or even debates, discussions about these issues and how to fix them. It always comes back to, you might be that, you agree, you're on that side, I'm a little bit on this side, whatever, but we always come back to how Bitcoin can come in and fix these problems. And the thing that I love about Bitcoiners that I've learned, specifically different from the crypto people, like a lot of people, I started and I just thought crypto and Bitcoin were the same, and everyone went through that stuff. Right. But now thanks to you and a couple others, I've become a total Bitcoin maximalist. The thing I see from the Bitcoiners, they're all mostly people that want to find solutions to these issues.
Right.
And they want to help, and they want to bring their area of expertise to this. They want to come in, and they're seeing, and then when you have a president like Bukele, that's like, yeah, we do need a government here. There are issues here, but I'm going to actually be good government, not corrupt government. And you're going to get something for your tax dollars. And you see how powerful this is. And I really feel like it's like the beginning of a global movement, and some people don't get it yet. And that's all right. But anyone watching this, I want to put this in the most simplistic terms. If you're watching this and you're like, I don't know about this Bitcoin thing, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin, ever, right? So imagine if there was only enough gold on planet Earth to make 21 million gold coins, and you got to own one of them, or even a half of one.
Right.
Imagine the value of that 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. That one gold coin, you hand it down to your children, whatever. So this is the power of that, and Bitcoin can help all of it. And to all the lefties watching the show, and I know there's people all over.
Just to follow up on that, so it's only 21 gold coins, and each one is divisible up to 100 million places. Right. So there's actually 2.1 quadrillion bits of your finite gold coins.
Yes.
Can you make an economy out of that? Fuck yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a Satoshi is the 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. It's the unit that is the smallest unit. When you can buy $1 worth of Bitcoin. You don't have to buy $43,000 as a Bitcoin. It's a commodity like gold. You can just shave off, $1 worth, and you can send that over to the network and pay $40 in fees. No, I didn't say that. No.
But yeah, and we're going to keep talking about these issues and how Bitcoin can find the solutions. And man. Thanks everybody for watching, and
Yeah.
follow
It's the orange pill.
the orange pill, baby.
You know, take the orange pill, lefties and righties.
Take it.
It's all good. And for the French, we make it as a suppository.
Did you get orange suppository?
Yeah, in France, everything, all drugs are taken as a suppository. If you go to the drugstore, you're like, I'd like some aspirin, please. Suppository?
Oh.
No, just the ones
No.
I want to swallow, please. Stop trying to stick stuff up my ass, please.
They're all just trying to finger bang you in the butt.
It's like they're totally obsessed with fecal matter, urine, suppositories, all the food, like andouillette. Have you ever had andouillette? It's pig intestines.
No.
You walk into a restaurant, it smells like pig shit. Then the cheese, it smells like piss, right? And then they're sticking stuff up their bumhole. I mean, that's a French lifestyle, but I'm not going to argue with it. They seem to have produced
like
some
it.
good things over the years. You know, they're not without merit.